In today's video, we have all the latest news and rumors around the NHL. In the rumor mill today, we're taking a look at players like Mitch Marner and Igor Shesterkin. Plus, could we see a trade involving Blackhawks defenseman Seth Jones? And what about Trevor Zegras? Will he be in Anaheim for the whole year, or what does his future hold? We have a fine in Montreal for Xhekaj, lots more players on waivers, and some more signings and injury updates coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of news and rumors to take a look at here today. We have our first supplemental discipline, you could say, from the NHL player safety. I'm surprised it's not more, to be honest, but Xhekaj of the Canadiens has been fined $3,385 for unsportsmanlike conduct. Now, of course, as we discussed yesterday, Patrick Laine took a dirty knee-on-knee hit from Leafs prospect defenseman Cedric Pare. Of course, Habs didn't like it, rightfully so. Xhekaj took it upon himself to try to fight him. He wouldn't fight, and he basically just was wailing away on him. Some people compared it to the Bertuzzi Moore incident way back. I don't think it was quite that bad, but still it was, a case where the player wouldn't, he wouldn't take the fight. And if you're going to be dirty like that, you have to man up like that and face the consequences. I'm sorry, but that's just the way the NHL works. Like, if you got to show a little respect to the superstars, and he did not do that at all. So Xhekaj takes a fine, but, I'm sure he would do it in a heartbeat again to defend his teammate after a dirty hit. So at the end of the day, I'm surprised Xhekaj wasn't suspended. But at the same time, I'm kind of surprised that the Leaf prospect wasn't given something more too. At the end of the day, it was a dirty, dirty hit, and there was no need of that anywhere around the NHL. Several more players on waivers today. All players on waivers yesterday ended up clearing again, so no waiver claims yet. Today, we've got a variety, including Blackhawks of Zach Sanford and Cini. The Habs have Luca Condotta and Gignac. The Wild have Ciccone, Raska, and Crotty. The Bruins have Mark McLaughlin. The Flames have Martin Furk and Justin Kirkland. The Kings have Tyler Madden, Joe Hicketts, and Glenn Godden. We have Nashville with Kiefer Bellows and Vinny Hinostroza. Tampa has Derek Pouliot, and St. Louis with Mackenzie McEachern and Skinner. So obviously lots of players on waivers, lots more to come. Certainly lots more cuts as well. Besides the players on waivers, some notable cuts include Montreal cutting some of their top prospects that include Riley Kidney, Philip Masar, Sean Farrell. We got Jacob Perreault, Xavier Simoneau, Luke Tuck, Florian Xhekaj, William Trudeau, and goalie Connor Hughes. They've all been cut and sent back to the minors. And Oilers have sent back their first-round pick from this year's draft, Sam O'Reilly, back to junior. And they've also cut Matt Savoy, who was picked up, the former first-rounder from the Buffalo Sabres. He will join their AHL franchise instead. The Vancouver Canucks signed prospect Vilmer Eriksson today, 3-year ELC. He's a huge beast of a guy, 6'6", 234-pound forward, 19 years of age, was taken 107th overall in 2023. So a huge player, huge signing there for Vancouver. The Calgary Flames have also signed one of their high picks from this year's draft, 2024. It was projected to be a first rounder, but it ended up going in the second round instead. I believe he was 40th overall, if I'm not mistaken. Andrew Basha, the Calgary native, drafted by the Calgary Flames, also gets his 3-year entry-level contract. So another good signing there. The Penguins, of course, who are playing Kraft Hockeyville tonight with the Ottawa Senators. Seems to be a tradition that Kraft Hockeyville seems to be Ottawa-Pittsburgh. I'm not sure how that keeps happening or if there's some kind of requirement there. But talking about Erik Karlsson, he's obviously not in the lineup tonight. Right now we're seeing reports that the Pens have basically shut Karlsson down. He has not participated yet in training camp. He's been dealing with an upper body injury. We've got different reports from the Penguins. At one point, they said it was all part of the plan, but then he was skating on his own, and then that stopped. And a lot of concern right now. They haven't ruled out the fact that he could be ready for opening night, but the longer this goes without him being able to participate, it's going to reduce the likelihood that he's going to be able to start the season. So certainly, Penguins, after having a disappointing year last year, they need to be back coming out hungry, coming out with a strong start. They basically ran out of runway last year. The Penguins had it within their own fate to kind of make the playoffs, and they fumbled it down the stretch. But they had a good run to make it interesting, but they didn't have a great start. So just like, teams like Pittsburgh and Ottawa who have had, bad starts the last few years, you just can't afford to have that happen again. You can't win the Stanley Cup in October, November, but you can lose the right to play for it if you have a terrible, first 15, 20 games. So we'll see what happens here with Karlsson. He's a big part of the team, big part of the offense, and right now trending towards possibly being out to start the NHL season. Now, as I mentioned, we have some trade talk I want to take a look at. This all comes from an ESPN article from writer Greg Wyshynski. Now, Wyshynski's made some season predictions. Of course, some of these predictions include some trades and some signings around players that have been rumored to possibly get moved. Now, yesterday we talked about a suggested blockbuster deal that came from TSN's Pierre LeBrun involving Mitch Marner and Igor Shesterkin. Now, LeBrun's premise was that both players are looking for a massive contract extension. Both players may or may not get those contracts from their current teams. And if we get through the campaigns with either of them or both not meeting expectations or not having the playoff success that they want, at that point, could they look for more of a shakeup, which could lead to both, players maybe being swapped for each other. So that's the whole premise around it. And now Wyshynski has a different take. He's predicting that the Toronto Maple Leafs will sign Mitch Marner, and he will remain with the Leafs. He's predicting that because of the fact that we've learned from Marner's interview with Elliotte Friedman that he is not necessarily opposed to contract negotiations taking place during the season, that they'll figure out a way to get it done. I'm a little bit reluctant to go that far myself. I don't know that it's in the team's best interest, to be honest. I mean, they have time at the end of the year to take care of this before the UFA period hits. I think more than anything for the Leafs, they need to wait and see how the season goes. I mean, to me, it's all about the biggest moments, the biggest times. With this, the only reason why you really consider trading Marner is that you're not sure you can win with him in the playoffs. And that's where he struggled, is in those big important playoff games. He's come up short, come up cold, and not produced. Otherwise, he's been a very, very productive player, one of the better players in recent history. So you want to be careful with a trade for sure. So Wyshynski predicts that he'll get his contract during the season. I feel a little bit different, but certainly kind of goes against the idea of what LeBrun was suggesting of we could see these two guys swap for each other. Now, when it comes to Igor Shesterkin, you're looking for $12 million on a long-term contract extension. Wyshynski's also predicting that before the season starts, that he's going to get that contract done with the New York Rangers. Now, of course, we're not that far away from the beginning of the season. This article just came out a few days ago, so ultimately we've heard about negotiations taking place, and that it's possible that Shesterkin may not want to negotiate in season, so it's even more important to get it done before the season starts. But that's not a lot of time. Now, another big one as well as we're watching is, of course, Jeremy Swayman. And whoever kind of goes first here, I do think could impact the other. I think, if anything, Shesterkin might impact Swayman more than the other way around. Of course, Swayman's a little bit younger, doesn't have quite as much experience, doesn't have as much games under his belt like Shesterkin does. So ultimately, I think Shesterkin's contract, if he gets $12 million, might kind of, if anything, push Swayman's up a little bit, because it's going to take all the top goalies and say, we can all get a little bit more, is probably what they're all going to be thinking. But if Swayman ends up getting, 8, 9, 10, somewhere in that range, which is what the rumored numbers are, I don't think it's going to really impact Shesterkin, because it's not going to be going above and beyond what he's reportedly looking for now. But certainly, those are two big goalie contracts that are something that we're keeping an eye on. Of course, with Swayman right now missing training camp, clearly having a bigger impact on his club, whereas Shesterkin's in camp and has signed for the year, so it's not such a urgent matter, so to speak. But certainly predictions from Wyshynski's that both players get their contracts done. Shesterkin before the season starts, and Marner during the year. Now, he also predicts a few trades, including some top young stars like Trevor Zegras. Now, he does predict that the Ducks will end up making a deal for Trevor Zegras, but it's not going to come until after the season. Obviously talking about the fact that, they've acquired a lot of young talent there. And like a lot of us have said that, whether or not Zegras actually fits. We know that Zegras has a couple of years on his contract, so certainly not a pressure point from that perspective. But clearly we know that there's been pressure on him from the organization to kind of change the way he plays a little bit, round out his game, make it more not only highly skilled, but more defensive awareness. And certainly play more of a 200-foot game. Well, we'll see. I guess, before they make a move, unless they get an offer they just can't refuse, it does make sense that they would want to wait and see what kind of adjustments he's able to make and see what kind of progress he can make to be a more complete player this year and really truly evaluate if he really does fit long-term with that organization or not. Of course, we're going to see a full season of Leo Karlsson. We got Cutter Gauthier coming into the mix. It's also going to give him some more top young talent to play with as well. So certainly going to give him a chance to maybe have a better season, boost his trade value, and boost his own stats. And then, if the Ducks at that point feel like they might be able to get a better fit for the organization by swapping him for another type of player, well, then that's certainly something that they'll take a look at. Like Wyshynski's saying, he feels that after the season would be the more likely scenario when Zegras gets moved, but certainly that he will end up getting there and won't have a long-term future here with the Anaheim Ducks. Now, he also goes on to say that he feels that the Blackhawks could very well trade top defenseman Seth Jones. Now, he's linking Seth Jones to the Edmonton Oilers. The reason before this is basically the rationale is this. Seth Jones is making $9.5 million. He's got this year and 3 more years on his deal. So certainly not, it's not a short term. He still has a lot of term and a decent amount of money remaining. Now, he's linking him to Edmonton because who signed his contract for Seth Jones was former Blackhawks GM Stan Bowman, who is now the GM in Edmonton. So certainly we know there's been lots of talk and rumors, speculation around the Oilers needing another right shot defenseman to play in their top 4. The only difficult part here is figuring out how in the heck this would work from a salary cap perspective. The Oilers are going to be very tight up against it, and getting a player with term with this kind of money, it would not be easy. Now the Blackhawks they do have another retention spot left. They'd have to eat some money on this deal. They'd have to knock it down to at least, I'm going to say probably at least $6.5 million. If they retain, around that 30% range or so, get it down from 9.5 down to like 6.5, something approximately, might be the only way to even have a chance. And then of course you're going to have money coming off the books, going the other way as well. Otherwise it would be, long term, if you think about Nurse's contract being, high, and then Bouchard in for a massive raise, to add Jones to that mix while having McDavid and Draisaitl, that's a lot of money tied up right there. That would be a worse scenario than we've seen with the recent Leafs with the core 4. So at the end of the day, I do understand the fact that the Blackhawks might be in a better position to move Jones, but I don't know that, and I understand the connection to Bowman, but I think it would be very difficult to pull off unless they want to send Nurse the other way, which I just don't see kind of happening here. Ideally, what they're looking for is a partner for Nurse, not to move along from him. I mean, to have a second pair that would both be making over $9 million, then you'd have Bouchard, who's rumored to be getting around 10, on the top pair. Like, that's pretty crazy. That's a ton of money. I just don't know how that's going to suffice and how that's going to work out from a cap perspective. So at the end of the day, they'd have to move a major piece out, and I don't think Edmonton's going to want to do that considering they're vying here for a Stanley Cup. So I think there's definitely a lot more options and cheaper options on the market than what Seth Jones brings. Even if he retained 50%, which I don't know that the Blackhawks would want to do, but if they did, that would be maybe a better chance of it happening, but at the same time still seems a little bit unreasonable. That's a lot of money. And I'm not sure he's the absolute best fit there. So I don't agree with this Wyshynski prediction either. I think the Zegras one is very realistic. I think between Marner and Igor, could they both get re-signed? Yeah, I can see that being possible. I just think if I'm Toronto, I wait. But I can see Toronto doing it. So at the same time, I can see 3 out of the 4 predictions coming true. But if I'm these teams, I would hold off on a Marner re-signing until later. I'd buy some time. Igor, I think the Rangers kind of have to get that done as soon as they can. And Zegras trade at the end of the year, sure, okay, that makes sense. Jones, And I can see him being traded. It's not that with a rising salary cap and the fact that they can still retain money, I can see how it would be more likely now, because there's not as many years as there was before. I just don't see him ending up in a team like Edmonton. I just don't think it's really financially possible. But let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.